Hello, welcome to Rainbow Space Magic Con 2.0. This is the, oh, which panel is this? This is the Queering of Pop Culture panel. Why don't we start out going around and introducing ourselves? This is a panel about modern pop culture, especially spec fic, but not necessarily entirely limited to it, and how it is informed and is informed by literature. We'll talk about our own favorite shows, our personal experiences, and some of the kind of good things and downfalls of how we're represented in the mainstream. So why don't we start with you, Nikki? Tell us about who you are, what you write.
Okay, just making sure I'm not on mute.
You're not. Very good.
Go me.
Yes.
I am Nikki Woolfolk. I'm an author and I'm a chocolatier. So the other day I did a reading and I pretty much warned everybody, but they were forced to listen to my descriptor of food as pretty much a character. So I have a tendency to write about romance, murder mysteries, and there's always food somehow described in whatever way, shape, or form, always. So that's what I do. Usually if I have friends reading, I always like slip them a little bit of chocolate or something, because every single time if you read my work, you have to have a full stomach. No joke. I will make sure to tease you and make you hungry. So I write fiction, nonfiction as far as the craft of writing, as well as culinary world.
I have to show this. This is one of my favorite covers ever. If you guys can see it, let's see. No, it's not
oh,
that
well. One's the original one. That Claudia did the illustration for Maison Death.
Maison
Death.
It's yeah, it's a chocolatier. It can't, it doesn't show up real well here, but it's a fantastic, fantastic cover. Steampunk chocolate, right? Lesbian steampunk chocolate.
Yes, it's basically like, I imagine, what if, what is it? What is the tagline? If Lucy and Ethel were a lesbian couple in steampunk world solving murder mysteries. That's what it's about.
I love that book. So thank you very much. Welcome. Let's go to Anne Barwell.
Hi, Anne. I'm in Wellington, New Zealand. You can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's actually Monday afternoon here. I write romance across quite a few range of genres, so as well as paranormal and fantasy. I also do quite a bit of historical and a wee bit of contemporary. And Elizabeth Noble and I have a shared series world called The Sleepless City, which is paranormal romance, urban fantasy.
Okay. Awesome. All the way from New Zealand. Wow. Okay, let's go to Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Noble, and I'm in Ohio. I write urban fantasy, paranormal fiction, thrillers, paranormal romance, mystery thrillers, and a little bit of contemporary and some BDSM once in a while.
Well, all the way from Ohio. You have to forgive me. I don't get out much with COVID anymore, so Ohio is a very, 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 very far away from here now.
Well, so is California.
Exactly. Okay, and Rory, you're more in Ohio neighborhood than California.
This is true. I'm Rory Coileain, and I am in Minnesota, and where it's going to snow tomorrow. And I write MM urban fantasy romance. I just finished off a 9-book series, The Soul Shares. And I am, as much as I love my guys, I'm looking for a new direction. And my two projects that are fighting one another for precedence right now are neither one of them are strictly speaking romance. One of them is magical realism. The other is science fiction with a strong romantic element, I guess you'd say. It's FNBA, I suppose you'd say. And I think that's about it.
Okay, let's see. I just figured this out. Let's see. Okay, and drop that back there. No, it doesn't show me there. I thought I figured out a great way to show your cover, Nikki, and it's not working for me, but I'll see if I can get back that later. So I am J. Scott Coatsworth. I am queer sci-fi, and I am also Queer Romance Inc. and Liminal Fiction and too many other sites to name. I write mostly sci-fi fantasy, now science fantasy, which I didn't even know really was a named thing. But if you think like your Anne McCaffrey's and things where you're blending a little bit of fantasy feel, a little bit of sci-fi feel, and a little bit of magical realism, although I'm not Hispanic, I'm not writing in Latin America. So one of my friends said he calls his realism adjacent fantasy. So same basic idea, a little bit of magic in the real world. Um, so get back to our list here. So we talked about this whole idea of the mainstream culture and how we're kind of invading it bit by bit as queer folk in our Facebook chat. So I put together from the Queer Sci-Fi site, we post regular articles about queer happenings and things. This is a non-exhaustive list and there may be some errors in it, so I'm going to put it into the chat. This is entirely my errors, although there were some contributions you guys made to it as well. But if there are any errors, the errors are mine and I claim them fully. But this is just basically kind of a selection of the last few years of folks that, or shows that have queer representation, and generally speaking, good queer representation. That's going to be a little in the eye of the beholder. A few of them, just to name some, are Discovery of Witches, Batwoman, Black Mirror, the San Junipero episode, or Junipero episode. Let's see, Hollywood, which I threw in here as alt history, Legends of Tomorrow, Star Trek Picard. So I won't read them all, but let's start out as I'm putting these in. Why don't we go around and say what your favorite current show or 2 or 3 shows are right now in terms of representation and why. So let's start this one off with Rory.
Mine will be probably the quickest to get through because I really do not watch a whole heck of a lot of television, but I purely love Star Trek Picard's the way that they just simply dropped a bi couple into the series with no need to explain their backstory and no need. Their characters we both know have been Raffi and 7 of 9 that we both know have been involved with men before, and now they're a couple, and that's just the way the universe is, and I purely love it.
Okay, let's go to Elizabeth. How about you?
I'm a big Star Trek fan, so Star Trek Discovery is probably my favorite with representing the queer community. There's a wonderful gay couple, and throughout the series, they then adopt. She begins identifying as a girl, but then changes to they and them. And there's a marvelous backstory to that. I also like Legends of Tomorrow. And one of my favorite ones was one that's no longer on, and that's Warehouse 13.
Okay, Anne, how about you?
I'm a huge comics geek, so I'm watching pretty much everything in the Arrowverse at the moment, and I really love the way they tackle a lot of issues, but also they have really good representation as well. So like Supergirl's got a lesbian couple, got a trans character, and the rest, there's a lot of gay characters around, so it's really good. I also like Shadowhunters because I read all the books, and I thought that the series did a really great job with that as well. And another one which is not current, but I'm still watching it, so it's current for me, is a series called Lost Girl, which is the main character is a succubus, and she basically hooks up with anybody. But
Omnisexual.
Hooking up, there's also relationships within it as well, and
Okay.
nobody blinks at the different relationship. It's just a matter of course, and they're just characters having their story, which is great. And like Elizabeth, I'm a huge fan of Star Trek Discovery as well.
It sounds like a running theme, just having the characters just be themselves in these shows.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Nikki, how about you?
I am definitely, I'm scooping up everybody else's suggestions, and I'm going to say ditto as far as Star Trek Discovery. That I was in love right from the start because I love Wilson Cruz. I remember watching him in My So-Called Life. I don't even know what the plot was for everything else in that show. I literally just watched it for him. That was my world. So I'm like, oh, there's other people. So watching him grow throughout the years and watching his career, and then having like baby queers there, and like everybody just their storylines are amazing and beautiful. Picard, for those that haven't watched it, spoiler alert, having Rafi and Seven of Nine get together, and you're right, like just having it where they get together. And my son had never seen Star Trek, but we were like, you know what? We just finished watching Picard. I wanted to watch it again, so I showed it to my son because I wanted him to see different representation in science fiction. And now he's like, we have to go back and watch all the Star Trek. So that's what we're doing right now. So
There's a project.
He's seeing all of this representation. And also, was it somebody else was watching Where's 13? I'm literally watching that right now because I never saw it. And I asked like some of my readers, I'm like, she's bi, right? Because they're really giving off like a huge bi kind of vibe. But this was also shot during a time frame where I don't think they would make the characters out, but like between H.G. Wells, yeah. Because I was like, whoa, this is like super wonderfully queer. So and so now my friends are like, I didn't see that before. I gotta rewatch it again. I'm like, dude, it is just it's there. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, and Nikki, I might be eating chocolate right now.
Yes.
Trader Joe's. Actually, I think this one's Target, but
I gave myself hot chocolate today. There's no reason. It's not cold.
There doesn't need to be a reason. Why would there need to be a reason? Okay. So for me, yeah, I really liked Discovery. I have liked all the Star Treks, but I find Discovery to be very cinematic, both in the special effects and the feel of it, and also in the storytelling. It feels much more of a connected arc than a lot of the Star Trek. I think some of the Star Trek series, like the Next Generation, there were periods where they had the Borg and you had a real long arc. And in the Voyager had kind of just its long arc of trying to find its way home. But it really feels like that to me. And I love Adira's character. And I forget what Adira's boyfriend's name or partner's name is. The one that's dead but not dead.
Gray.
Okay. Yeah. I love them together. I just, like you're watching Wilson Cruz's character. I'm like watching them just because I love them together. I didn't think I would like the Orville because I don't like things that make fun of science fiction. But I watched it and I was like, it's lighthearted, but it's really more like a love letter to Star Trek or a love letter to science fiction. And it goes the extra mile by having gay Klingons, basically. So I think that one's awesome. Hollywood is not really sci-fi, but I'm including it because, again, I think it's sort of an alternate reality. It's looking back on what Hollywood would have been in the 50s and 60s if it had been run by gay and queer people. So there's a gay, basically Rock Hudson is in the film and he is openly gay and has his partner. And it's really a cool breakdown of what might have been if things had been different at the time. And the last one I'll mention is Black Mirror, specifically I think they call it San Junipero, but I think it would be Junipero if you said it properly in Spanish, which is just one of the most touching and beautiful episodes with a lesbian character couple in it that I've seen in a long time. So if you haven't watched Black Mirror, skip the first episode. If you've watched it, you know why. It will put you off and you will never watch any of the rest of the series. But there's some really great episodes in there. And this one in particular is very, very queer and beautiful. There's a couple others I just want to mention. These are more historical ones that you might check out. Buffy, Jessica Jones, Sense8, which is not super historical, but oh my God, it was one of my favorites. 6 Feet Under, Teen Wolf, Torchwood, of course, Rory, Torchwood.
Oh, yes.
So you want to tell us about your Torchwood feline connection?
Yes, he has decamped. He spent the whole evening shedding all over me, and now he's gone. Captain Jack Harkness is my one-eyed rescue cat, and I was actually able to give a picture of him to John Barrowman, and John Barrowman approves.
He's like, yeah, it looks just like me.
Well, he's in a perpetual wink. We got one eye.
There you go. So in that theme, so what are some of your past favorites? I know you mentioned Warehouse 13. Let's go back around and reverse order. Nikki, what did you like that has queer characters, spec fic or not spec fic, that really represented well, that I would say something that's more than 5 years old?
Okay, well, one of the ones that that was kind of hinting, I mean, it wasn't as great as it could have been,
Mhm.
but if you know the backstory of, was it Legend of Korra, and you knew what was happening with the animators as they were, you know, putting stories together, they had their hands tied in the worst way on the last season, so they weren't able to, you know, make sure that, you know, the kids definitely knew this is a queer couple. But as my son's watching it, he's 14, he's watching it, and he's like, they're a couple, why aren't they kissing? And I'm like, well, back in the day. And he's like, he's like, if it was now, they'd be kissing. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah. So you know, it's one of those things. I've gotten to introduce him to different shows. So let's see, Warehouse 13 is what he's got me into watching. We're watching, you know, we did Legend of Korra. Let's see, I've forgotten to mention Black Lightning as far as one of the more modern things, as far as, you know, lesbian couples.
Yeah, we have that on the list too.
Yeah, and yeah, that's all I got for right now. I know I'm gonna like think of stuff later on. I've also been like trying to catch up on different shows, and it's not so much sci-fi, but I've been watching was it La Casa de Papel, or on Netflix in English it's House of was it House of Papers, the translation, but in America it comes under, was it Money Heist?
Okay.
And that is, I love heist films, but it's a heist show, and it's told in episodic, you know, and it's amazing. And you're basically finding yourself rooting for the thieves, and it's very odd, but it's really cool. So if you're okay with reading subtitles or you speak Spanish, it's a great show. So
Our Italian friends recommended that to us too.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm old enough to have actually seen. I remember which one it was. There were two kisses that were early on that were gay kisses on television, and one of them was Will and Grace, where the
Yes.
Will and Jack kissed at the Today Show cameras just to prove that it could be done. But the other one was Melrose Place, and it was Doug, and I figured his boyfriend was at the time, but they kissed and they chickened out with it, and they showed the kiss from the back of one of their heads, and that was all we got. So yeah, it really was a different time.
Yeah.
Let's go over to Anne. So Anne, what's one of your more favorite historical shows?
Okay, so I'm a big Teen Wolf fan. I loved what they did with that, and they had, I think they had a couple of gay couples in that, and they didn't show away. It was just, and there was a point where they were showing sort of montages of couples in bed together, and they just included the gay couple at the same amount of screen time as the het couple. It was just, everything was, I mean, everything they came up against, that wasn't the problem. It was all the bad guys. And
same amount of skin too.
Yeah. Also a huge Buffy fan from right back from when it first aired.
Okay.
Big Doctor Who watcher. They've had quite a few things in Doctor Who where they just go somewhere and there's a gay couple, and you know, and it's good. They have killed a couple of them off, I must admit. I still haven't forgiven them for Yanto.
Oh yes, I know. Oh
no, I just won't watch past Children of Earth. Nah, yeah, won't.
Knife through the heart.
Haven't forgiven them for that. And they killed Bill as well, who was Peter Capaldi's companion, and she was lesbian, but they kind of brought her back, so I suppose I can kind of forgive that.
Nikki's like, oh no,
Yeah, she was a great character as well.
I hold a grudge. I'm just saying. I'm holding.
Yeah. As I said, never forgiven them for Yanto. But yeah. And I've watched a fair amount of anime in my time. I'm a huge fan of, this is going probably right back, of Gundam Wing. And a couple of the guys in that, they didn't specifically come out and say they were together, but they had like this continuing love theme music that used to play when the het couple were on, and also when they were on. And my kids, who were, how long ago was that? Because they're in their 30s now. They were teenagers, and they'd go past, look at what I was watching, going, why aren't they kissing? They're together. So it was pretty obvious.
Yeah. I got Xena. Okay. And Elizabeth, how about you? So you mentioned Warehouse 13. So you want to tell us more about that, or is there anything else that you really liked?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Warehouse 13. They started right off from the very first show. And one of the scenes that really sticks with me, and it was just such a wonderful, subtle thing that they did. The two main characters were chasing somebody through, I don't know, a hotel or an airport or something. And in the background, you see all these posters for an LGBT event, some sort of convention, and they just, throughout the whole show, they show things like that. They did finally, I don't want to give away too much for Nikki because she's in the middle of watching it. They do end up having, cover your ears, Nikki. They have a very out character, a gay man, and they do a bit with his.
I just got onto that part.
You okay? So you know Jinxie, yeah. They do a little bit with his ex boyfriend, and then they have a gay woman, a lesbian. Well, I think she's bi actually, and the whole thing is just that doesn't define the characters. That they're just part of the plot. Jinxie is a main character. The woman is an important reoccurring character, and she comes back in several forms. And I don't want to ruin it for Nikki. But I just think the whole way they did that was just, yep, there's these people, and being queer does not define them. It's their Jinxie was a ATF or FBI agent. That's what his main part is that he's this investigator. And he has a special talent that fits into the show, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
You're being upstood by the star behind you there, Elizabeth.
I know, you see the little cat?
Ricky, what's the cat's name?
Oh, my cat is Oscar.
Oscar. Hey, Oscar.
Oscar.
Okay, Rory, how about you? What was something a little bit older that you really liked in terms of TV shows?
Well, there's Torchwood. There will always,
of course, yes.
But something that Nikki said kicked off, going back to look at this, the particular episode that I saw is not that much older. It was aired in 2020, but the Doctor Who spinoff, Sarah Jane, had a character, her adopted son, Luke. And what they did an episode called Farewell, Sarah Jane for the Doctor Who Lockdown series, which unfortunately I didn't get to see all of, but it aired back the end of last year. And the actress who played Sarah Jane Smith passed away several years ago, and they did an episode, the 1-year commemoration of her death, and Luke was her adopted son. And I was crying in that final episode. He says that Sarah Jane is the one who helped him accept his sexuality. He's gay, and in fact gave him the courage to marry his husband, and just to be himself. And I wept. It was wonderful.
So I'm going to leapfrog off that to one of our next questions. So was there one scene in particular in one of these shows that just really got to you, that really spoke to you? For me, and again, it was not a spec fic show, but it was when we were watching Glee, and Kirk had gone to this new school, and he met Blaine. And Blaine comes in and sings Katy Perry, sure what the song is, but just basically sings this love song to Kurt, like the first time he meets him, and just takes this girl song and makes it a boy song, and was just unabashedly gay. And it was on national TV, and I just cried. I just started like weeping watching this thing, because it was like, this is I never had this. If I had this as a kid, this would make life so much easier to have seen something like this on TV. So that was my moment that just got to me. Let's jump to Elizabeth. Did you have a moment when you were watching something that really just connected with you with a queer character?
again, it was your Warehouse 13 and that very first scene with those posters in the background. I mean, to this day, I vividly remember that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was such a great way to include everybody.
Very cool. Nikki, how about you?
Had to unmute myself. I just remembered one of the shows, my son was really interested in seeing She-Ra, because I was like, back in my day, children, we had He-Man and we had She-Ra. And I was like, okay, so like they're doing the redo for She-Ra. I'm like, let's see what you young children are doing. Oh my God. We were like just in it. It is unabashedly queer. It is rainbows everywhere. Swift Wind is like super like queer. He's like rainbow. It's amazing. Like I'm getting goosebumps. And I remember watching each episode and like getting choked up, because for my son, this is his normal.
Yeah.
He gets to watch this and it's his normal. And I was thinking the same thing, like if I had had this as a kid, things would have been definitely different for me. Yeah. I would have come out sooner. So we're watching these episodes and I'm also like letting him know, like, oh, this person who does the voice for Double Trouble, their name is Jacob and they've done this, and that, you know, so it's like letting him know who is in our community, and he's getting more and more information. And we're watching She-Ra and it is so amazing, and how they wrapped it up, it was just beautifully done. I still have goosebumps. It's been like a year and it's amazing. So that was the show that recently, watching what's happening and watching the representation that is really springing forward, that it gives me hope. I mean, I was a little jealous, but at the same time, really happy that this is something that, you know, the kids and the adults get to see now. So yeah.
I remember as a kid, Sesame Street and Electric Company in particular were very intentional about their portrayal, especially of people of different races. And at that time, of course, you didn't have queer characters in the shows, but they wanted to normalize for kids that maybe didn't have a lot of people around them who were different from them, that there are all kinds of different people. And I think that was one of the places that I, as a kid, kind of got this idea that, you know, America really is a multicultural place. Even if most of my neighbors are white, there's a lot of other people out there, and I need to learn about who they are. So these shows really can do a lot of work to shape the next generation in a way that makes us really happy and makes other people rather unhappy, but I'm happy about it.
They can get a little therapy. It'll be just fine. They're just fine. I get a little therapy too, a little maintenance. You'll be fine. So
I gotta keep you all on your toes. So we're going to jump to Rory.
I'm still waiting for my moment as an ace person, I think.
Okay.
There isn't one that really stands out for me. As far as simply, GSM, gender sexual minorities, I can't believe I'd forgotten to mention Xena. Oh, Lord, I'm gonna have my queer card yanked. Yes, they teased it, but at the same time, for me as an ace person, seeing a relationship like that, it didn't have to be consummated sexually. There was a value to that, I suppose. You know, it's funny, it's the way I've always thought of a lot of Elton John's early music. Is, you know, he couldn't write his own sexuality, so he wrote some amazing stuff that had nothing to do with sex.
Okay.
You know,
work around
some of the Beatles stuff, the early stuff. It was like that. It was like, if you find something else to sing about, there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, we're getting some echoes too in the chat, Rory. Valerie says, I feel as ace, I'm still in a position of just wanting to see someone like me. I haven't found them yet. Yep. And Taya Nishimori says, I hear you, Rory, sex sells, so they're going to assume everyone wants some. So you got a lot of company out there.
Yep.
Okay, and Anne, how about you? Have you had that aha moment that just kind of connected with you in some way?
Yeah, but with me, I'm sort of more about the people need to get to know each other first in the romance, and then the sex comes after, which kind of reflects where I'm at as well. So, as you said, there's a lot of thing out there with sex sells where I'm more interested in seeing the relationship and then building up to the sex. I must admit, one of the things that really got me into sort of, oh, wow, you can do this, was reading fan fiction.
Okay, yeah.
And hey, this is actually possible, it's out there. But one of the early things I remember is going back to Torchwood. There was an episode where he goes back in time and meets the original Captain Jack, where he took his name from.
Yes.
And we did a slow dance in a ballroom, both men on the floor together in the 1940s, and that just, because I love historicals, and that was just it for me. I loved it.
I might have guessed that about you.
And there was also something more recently. I know we haven't hit movies yet, but I don't know if you've seen The Old Guard.
Was it?
The movie that just came out last year. There's that scene in there where two of the characters, the gay couple, are prisoner, and he says, "Oh, is this your boyfriend?" And he has this long speech that how he's so much more than that. And I got the graphic novels out of the library a couple of weeks ago, and that scene is in there word for word. I was really happy.
Okay. So let's do a quick lightning round. So what are 3 movies that everybody should see? Just the titles that are queer movies. So I don't want to start here because I haven't thought of them yet. So I'm going to throw this one to Elizabeth.
I haven't seen any movies that I can think of that aren't really just sci-fi or Star Wars is the only things I've really seen recently. So I'm drawing a blank on that. Sorry.
Okay.
I will. Can I mention though Umbrella Academy?
Okay.
A recent show, and they had a great representation of the gay man, and he went back in time and met his a soldier.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one to add to the list. I had forgotten that one. Okay. How about Rory?
I haven't gotten to a lot of movies lately either, but I will give a glad shout out to Annihilation, which had the bad fortune to come out at about the same time as Arrival. So it didn't get as much attention paid to it, but it's an absolutely visually amazing movie. And there's a lesbian character in there that, again, what I love about Star Trek Picard and with Raffi and Seven, it's a totally matter-of-fact thing. One of the members of the team is a lesbian, and it's just the way things are, and it's marvelous. And I might also mention, although again they could have done so much more in representation, what they did with Sulu in the Star Trek reboot movies.
Oh yeah, just kind of the quick. He's got his husband there, and yeah.
But it was there, and I enjoyed it, although I believe they could have done a lot more with it.
Okay. And Anne, how about you?
I don't watch a lot of movies because I work weird hours and don't get much time for watching these days. Old Guard was one of them. There was one I watched on Netflix last year while we were locked down and I had time to watch, but I can't remember what it is. I've just gone completely blank.
I know
there's a few more out there than there used to be, and it's really good. It's our Netflix. Oh, and the 2 Christmas movies, a couple of Christmas movies that came out recently.
There were 4 or 5 of them that were queer this year. Yeah, we had a whole made a day out of it.
Those, and they were fantastic. I loved those.
Yeah, there's been none, and then there was a whole slew of them. So we spent all day on Christmas Day watching just gay Christmas movies. I think one was lesbian too.
Christmas week too. That was great.
Okay, I'm going to throw out a few here. Some of these are older ones. Brokeback Mountain, even though it's not gay actors playing the roles, still guts me when I see that film. Um, there was a real cute one about a lesbian cheerleader a while back called "But I'm a Cheerleader," about a lesbian cheerleader who she's like, I can't be a lesbian, I'm a cheerleader. Um, and then more recently, Love, Simon. And there's so Love, Simon was the movie, and then there's Love, Victor, which is I think is that HBO. It's one of the streaming services, and it takes the same high school a few years later, and it takes another gay kid who's not out yet, and he is kind of in correspondence with Simon about coming out and whether he's gay or not, and where he wants to go from there. It was really, I think it's like 6 or 8 episodes, but really sweet and just beautiful show. Um, Okay, so let's move on to some of the more difficult parts here to talk about. Um, First one, tropes, some of the bad tropes or overused tropes maybe. I made a quick list of tropes that I've kind of seen come and go over the years. Back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, the gay character always dies at the end. It's a tragic life. 50s, 60s time period, not just that, but the evil queer, the person who's gay is the evil person. 70s and 80s, coming out was a big thing. Every story was about coming out. 80s and 90s, all the stories became the characters have AIDS. So we kind of went back to the gay character always dies trope. 90s and 2000s it was the gay best friend. You know, every movie had one. So there's this one guy, and he's like the girl's best friend, and he knows how to take her shopping and do her nails and everything else. And then apparently it's been around for a long time, but it's really gained notice the last 10 or 20 years. The bury your gays trope, where you have like one great gay character, one great lesbian character, trans character, whatever, and it kind of goes with the character always dies. You're going to kill him off, and quite often in an unnecessarily grisly way. To get kind of wring all the emotion out of that character you can. So how do we feel about these tropes? Are there other tropes that you guys have run across that you don't like, or do you think we're moving beyond that finally as a culture, or are there some new tropes replacing these ones? Let's start with Rory.
I'm going to toss in evil bi.
Okay.
That somehow bisexual people are just inherently untrustworthy. And
well, they could go either way, and you never know. And like we might wake up one day and be this and then that. And...
Nothing makes them happy, right? I was ahead of the curve on House of Cards before everything came out about Kevin Spacey, because when they took the cheap route of showing he was evil by making him bi.
Okay.
You know, I'm just like, no, I'm out.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, Anne?
We don't get the same amount of stuff showing here that you guys do. Unfortunately, our Netflix is apparently the worst in the world.
Oh no!
From a news article, it's been proved. So there's a lot of shows that you guys talk about we've never had here at all. The only way I've managed to get hold of them is to buy DVDs. And then I buy DVDs from Amazon and pay the horrific postage because they don't even sell here. So
and wait for 2 months, yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite, yeah. And it's the same with books. Most of the books I like to read, I can't buy in this country.
Yeah.
Because we don't stock it. And
yet again, you have the best COVID situation in the whole world. So there's that.
Yeah, it's always been like that here. So so most of so I sort of grab what I can. The nice thing is the library I work for is getting a lot more inclusive, and there's a lot more movies that we can get through them and books and stuff. But they really need to get past all the books they have coming out.
Okay.
Because they're still on that kind of niche.
Gotcha. How about you, Nikki?
Yeah. Okay. I forgot the question because I was paying attention to Anne. I was like, that's great.
Anne is mesmerizing. Wow. I mean, you can't help but pay attention to Anne. So trope-wise, like, what do you think about tropes in general? Are there tropes that you're seeing now that you think that are good, or tropes that are bad? I mean, tropes are not inherently bad. They're just kind of a character.
But and the bury the gays. I got sick and tired of, if there's a gay character, they have AIDS. I grew up in the Bay Area in the 80s. And it was like, I don't want to watch this. It wasn't that I was in denial. It was just like, we're gutted. We're tired.
Yeah.
Like, when are we going to get our happy ending? And so I've been, I now try to avoid shows like that, or even books like that. And I will specifically tell people, I don't like to be spoiled, but let me know if this is a happy ending or not, because I refuse to watch trauma. Like, I just can't do it anymore. And so I get to read and watch these things that are, not as focused on the negative. And instead it's about us having stories and adventures. And I remember watching Sense8. And I remember watching the first season, and I binge watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was in tears, ugly cry. It was great. I looked like Claire Danes, when she ugly cries. That woman's amazing. You know what I'm talking about. And so it was so profound that I was like, this encompanies, like, this sums up how I feel as a queer person. And I showed it to my partner, and he's grown up in New England. I'll just leave it at that. And so he was able to watch this, and I'm watching him, and he's like very stoic. He's getting mad, absolutely raging, to the point where he had to hit pause. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? He was like, if that mother dead names her daughter one more time, I'm going to throw this computer. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it's things like that. And it was wonderful to see, at least with Sense8, even if you're not into sci-fi, to see that there was a story to be told. And it was, this adventure, the conflict, but it wasn't bury your gaze. And that's what I loved about it. So yeah.
Okay. And someone, let's see, Eric Dutton says in chat, you may want to investigate VPN services that allow you to look like you're from whatever country you choose. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I know about that. They're cracking down on that though, and I don't have watching time, so I'm kind of DVDs is my way to go. Because then I can watch when I've got time.
Okay, and I think Elizabeth, I don't think we've gotten to you yet. Tropes?
Well, when I watch TV and movies, I watch it, I don't necessarily, I'm kind of trope illiterate, I guess. I don't really pay attention to those things. As long as it's a story that holds my interest, I am kind of getting angry with the bury your gaze, because those end up being my favorite characters, and then somebody always tragically kills them off. But I don't think I associate that with a certain trope. I just get annoyed with it. A lot of shows that I watch don't do things like that, because again, I'm more Star Trek, Terminator, Tremors, that you blow stuff up and you have a car chase, and I'm pretty much happy with it.
You have kind of a low bar.
Yeah, I do. I have a real low bar, and it just needs to entertain me. And I don't like things where characters get killed off a lot. I like the happier. I'm with Nikki. I don't want to see tragedies. I don't want to see sad things. I don't want to cry during my favorite shows. I just want to enjoy the characters and have a good story. And I'm easy.
Okay. We have about 7 minutes, 6 minutes. We can go a couple minutes past. We don't want to go too long past to screw things up. I have two more things I want to discuss. First is the Bechdel test. And this is kind of tangential to what we're talking about, but it also is kind of relevant. Allison Bechdel is the woman who wrote the strip Dykes to Watch Out For. And in 1985, in the strip, invented the test. The test is, for a movie, it has to have at least 2 women in it. They have to talk to each other. And they have to talk to each other about something other than a man. And you would be surprised how many films do not meet the Bechdel test. They figured upward of 50% of films or more that they have user surveyed do not actually have a conversation between 2 women that's not about a man. So how do you feel about representation there in terms of dealing with queer representation, but also representation of women, representation of bisexual and queer women of color, et cetera, in ways that kind of to Rory's point, Elton John writing about other things, right? How are we doing as a society, as a culture, in terms of meeting that test these days, and what can be done to do better? So anybody want to jump in?
To me, those types of movies are what I refer to as chick flicks, and I really don't watch them.
Yeah.
They have no interest to me. I don't even, the first I heard about this is when I read your little document you wrote. I didn't even know this was a thing. But I agree with it. But I agree completely.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of movies that aren't chick flicks that also still fall into the same thing, where your characters are just, your female characters are very shallow. You know, they're all about the men and they're not involved in their own lives. So, um, you want to jump in there, Nikki?
Let's see. Oh, I got to see, was it Bechdel's play Funeral Home? So I was like, oh yeah, that's the same person. I know, I'm a little slow. In my mind, I end up doing like the black and queer test. And I'm like, nobody passes. So, but it's okay. It's one of those things where I don't really get to see that level of representation. So seeing two women not talking about a dude, it's like if there's a baby in the script, it's like, even then it's like, I think it's very tough for writers to be allowed to, as far as film is concerned, to be able to write two characters that are not making a fellow the nebulous of any sort of conversation. It's gotten to the point where there are times where I know it's going to happen, and just like Elizabeth, I'm more into, all right, if it holds my interest, you got me on that one, and that's just fine. But if it makes it where it has to be a romantic interest, it has to be about, you know, this couple coming together, I'm kind of like Rory, where I'm like, it's okay to be friends. It's not a dirty word. Like I'm really okay with having queer characters not hooking up. And so we've been like, my family and I, we've been watching some adventure shows where couples do not come together. Instead, they stay friends, and we're like, wow, you know, that was a really good film, because you knew that they were gonna, like, if they wedged the people together, it just wouldn't have worked. And instead, it was
natural.
like, yeah. So there have been a couple of films that I've seen that on, and I like that. Yeah.
Now I said Bechdel, and you said Bechdel. Do we know which one's right? Because I want to get.
I'm gonna say you. I pronounce everything wrong.
Well, and I only do it that way because I study Italian, and Italian CH is a hard C, so it's like now hardwired in my brain. I see CH and it's sound. So I think I've heard it that
I do
way.
French,
Sure.
so it was a Bechdel Wallace. Okay. Yeah, don't listen to me. So
okay, Anne, Rory, you want to jump in anything there?
Yeah, the only thing is, it would be nice to, you'll see a lot of movies where there's two gay guys in there. They get together. It's like, I'd like to see one where they are friends and they go, yeah, no, you're not my type.
Well, no, they're gay. They're like magnets. They fit together because they're gay.
It's like every time you see these I do watch a bit of those, I must admit. Sometimes I like a bit of downtime. And you don't see every het guy and het girl that they all have to get together. I just like to see the same thing. I mean, yeah, I've listened to a couple of audios where that sort of thing's happened, and he's like, why aren't you hitting on me? You're gay. He's like, yeah, you're not my type.
Sex and the City, when it was one of the movies, they had Stanford and they had the other guy who was a real annoying, I forget what his name was, but Anthony. And they got them together in one of the films. And I was just like, no, these two would never get together. They're so, no, just no. But they're the only gay guys in the show. So, of course, they had to get together at some point.
I think part of that is we need more gay LGBTQIA representation in the director's chair.
Yeah.
And in the producer's chair, because what we have right now is so many filmmakers who don't know how to show that a character is LGBTQ, other than having them be attracted to someone or have sex with someone. And I think that once we get some more of our own voices in there telling these stories, we're going to find a lot more. Because it's not just women. The Bechdel test can apply to lots of different minority groups, and gay men included. Like everybody's been saying, if there's two gay guys in the movie, they've got to get together.
Yeah.
But that's where the storytelling is right now, I think, in movies.
Yeah. Got to be a romantic aspect. Now, I got to point out, there's the Noble test, which Elizabeth posted in the chat, in case you guys didn't see it. Noble's test is no aliens, no explosions, no car chases, no fights, no point. I like the test. Now, we have to find movies. We have to make a Venn diagram of the movies that meet both the Bechdel test and the Noble test. Okay, so last thing real quick. So there's been a lot of controversy about whether characters who are queer should be played by queer actors who match those identities. So whether gay characters should be played by gay guys or straight guys, trans characters by trans people, etc. I'm just going to throw in my take and ask you to do a quick what you think of it, and then we'll wrap it up. Um, I think in principle, in general, I don't want to limit who writes about what kind of characters and who plays what kind of characters. That's kind of in the abstract. In the particular reality we're in, there's a long history of people playing those characters and not doing them very well, and people who are gay not playing gay characters, and people who are transgender, etc. So what I would like to see is like a 5 or 10-year moratorium on that happening. And in the meantime, every character being played by somebody who is of that persuasion, so that they can have their shot at it, they can show us how it's done, and then at that point reopen the conversation and talk about, okay, maybe now we can have somebody play the character on the reboot of Brokeback Mountain, have a straight actor again. But I think there's just realistically there's been a real lack of diversity in people playing the characters. So I would like to see that kind of addressed before we just kind of go on and say, well, in theory, everybody plays everybody. That's just my take on it. What do you guys think?
I think the person that's best suited for the role, and I have no idea how actors are chosen for different roles, but it should go to the person that does it the best. And if you're not queer and you're going to play a queer character, you better get it right.
Yeah, there's something to that in terms of like writing too. Like if you're going to write a certain type of character, you find out what you're writing about.
Mm.
I'm a little uneasy in the abstract. I'm a little uneasy about the idea of locking actors into playing only one type of role. But like you said, in the real world, actors have been locked out of so many roles.
Yeah.
That it's walking a tightrope between the two.
Yeah. Like, would you say a gay actor couldn't play a straight role?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember reading something somewhere once. I think John Barrowman went for the main role in Will and Grace and got told he couldn't do it because he wasn't gay enough. Yeah,
I am not surprised. I am not surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, Nikki. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So, Nikki, did you want to throw anything in?
Yeah. I've had time to think about that because it's like, well, as a person of color, I'm seeing it from that angle, and I realized that it's the same where, okay, yes, you want everything to be fair, but right now it isn't fair. And also casting directors have in their mind of, we can get this actor because they will bring a large draw and whatever. And I know that they can play this, but they're also missing out on all these, everybody in our quilt bag, LGBTQIA, they're missing out on those particular actors that they haven't really given a shot to because they have in their minds, this is the person that should play this. And it's not saying that they're not talented, but they're also missing out on really discovering extremely talented people as well that can be brought in. It doesn't have to be the same thing. I mean, I know a lot of us like Tim Burton films, but he keeps getting the same actors. We don't need to do that. I mean, like, I like Nightmare Before Christmas. I like Helena Bonham Carter, but we don't have to see her in every single same film. Like, it's kind of that.
But she's the only British actress, so she has to be in everything.
Exactly. No one else exists.
Well, wait. There's Helen Mirren and the National Treasure, Judi Dench. Yeah, there's three.
Helen Mirren, Judi Dench. I love them. I'm so in love with them. But it's one of those things where I understand, like, in theory, yes, everybody should be able to play, all these different characters, but that's not what's happening. And I really do think that it would behoove us to allow some time for a huge discovery of these different actors that are coming in from our community that are saying, this is how it's done. This is what we're bringing to the table. And then being able to have that conversation of more gathering others out there. So, yeah.
I feel like we have the same kind of issue with women over a certain age trying to find roles in Hollywood, and I think it's maybe eased a little bit, but still, it's Hollywood, so it's going to take another couple decades.
Yeah.
Okay, we better wrap it up, guys. We've gone about 4 minutes over, 5 minutes over. Thank you very much to everybody for coming to watch us. Thank you for our wonderful tech support. If you guys want to, you can go over to Discord. If you've been over there, there's a chat over there for panels. Pop in there for a little bit. We're also doing our closing party there, so basically just kind of hanging out and saying goodbye and saying what a great thing this has been. I've really enjoyed doing this thing with you guys at RSM. Next year should be a lot of fun too, but I don't even want to think about that at this point. I'm just going to revel in the fact that it is over for now and I can go back to writing. So
wonderful job.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everybody.
Right.